Welcome to Urbane Legends, the podcast about urban legends and how to act in a courteous and refined manner, but much less about that. Here's your hosts, Neil and Chris. Hello and welcome to the Season 1 finale, episode 25 of Urbane Legends, the podcast exploring urban legends and, for one final time, a little bit of etiquette for you. I am the travel reporter for BBC Radio Natwich, Chris Flynn, and with me, a very special guest this week, a fixer to the stars, a man who has been employed by Halliburton, BAE Systems, GlaxoSmithKline, a man who is wanted in nearly every country in the world. No one knows his name. He produces articles of war for many a guerrilla fighter and is known by Interpol simply as the man in the moon. It is.
Going by the name Neil Herbert, just for this week.
Hi, Neil Herbert. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad.
How is your murky world of backhanders, putting guns in bananas, cargo planes, Canadian medical pharmacies online, that kind of stuff? How's it going? Profitable?
It's a tough gig, Chris, but it's rewarding, you know.
Is it like that film?
The smiles you put back on people's faces, that's what does it all for me. Oh, and the immense profits as well, obviously.
Is it like that film, I can't remember what it's called, God of War or something, with Nicolas Cage, where he's an arms dealer?
I've not seen that. I assume they'll take the usual Hollywood license and, try and sexy it up. No, I mean...
So I understand currently you hold passports in the following countries: Malta, Lebanon, South Africa, Venezuela, and Vatican City. Is that true?
I have numerous nationalities that are all legally confirmed and all completely above board, is all I can say to that.
And is it true that a lot of state agents, so governments, use you as a middleman? I've heard you were heavily implied in the Iranian-Contra thing back in the 70s.
Well, sometimes people want to do something at arm's length, and then they'll come and talk to me.
Yep, need to get some crack cocaine into the ghettos.
Yeah, someone will get the job done. No, mate, I feel like you're being really cynical about,
I'm just a businessman.
You've got to think about what, the ends that we're looking for here, Chris. Sometimes can't make an omelette without breaking eggs.
Yeah, that's true. And
sometimes you've got to make tough decisions.
Do you think maybe I have a slightly simplistic or even naive view of the world?
You're a mere child in terms of these geopolitical
machinations.
Yeah,
well, thanks for appearing. I know that you don't like to reveal yourself very often.
I can't talk too much about my work, obviously, because you're not a paying customer. So, but no, I did thought I'd come along, and I do have a little bit of a soft spot for mysteries and urban legends. So
you'd have to, wouldn't you?
About one of those today was why you invited me on.
That was why I invited you on. So thanks for being here. I don't know if you're aware, but during the first series, due to, let's just say, some contractual obligations around using the name Urbane Legends, we've had to give some etiquette tips at the start of each episode. Fortunately, that was only for the first 25 episodes, so, this is the last one. There won't be any in the second series. But I thought I'd finish on some good British etiquette from a website called greatbritishmag.co.uk. Sounds promising, doesn't it? So I'm going
to... one way of putting it.
Okay. Well, I mean, just one of the more stories here is what is the difference between Pop Juice and Cordial, which is quite obvious, isn't it? if you've...
Turns out different countries have different names for things.
Well, no, Pop is... we're not going to go into it, but Pop is fizzy drinks. Fizzy drinks. Juice is juice, and Cordial is concentrate.
It's a concentrated juice that you'd water down with water. Okay, yeah.
Right. So, number one.
Well, I did, God.
Oh, here we go.
I wouldn't call them pop.
Fizzy pop. That's what I... Hello, could you get me... Shopkeep, could I have some fizzy pop, please? Orange-based. Oh, rot your teeth. Rot your teeth, Lord Flynn. Oh, come. Mother said I may have a fizzy pop.
And on the quality of the cordial.
Could I have a panda pop?
And you can make your own fizzy pop by buying sparkling water and adding cordial. So
I know. And that's the night. Like I like fizzy water. It's very nice. It's got kind of a bitterness to it. I think that's all of the gases.
Carbonation, yeah. It makes it slightly acidic.
Lovely. So, knowing how to act appropriately in social situations can be difficult at the best of times. It's made harder still when visiting a new country like the UK, which is famous for its strict etiquette rules. Fuck off. You're having a giraffe. Well, maybe if you watch Downton or something and you think that's Britain.
I mean, for a very small subset of the country, I suppose it is, but for a certain subset of Parliament, it's still fucking.
Well, I've heard that you donated exactly £3 million of your ill-gotten gains to the Conservative Party, so you're actually in the House of Lords next time. Is that true, Neil?
Well, a game means to an end, you know. Let's say there's a pleasing willingness to be influenced by cash in the current administration. I'll say no more.
Perfect. So, while much can be learnt from books and television, nothing helps one comprehend a culture quicker than interacting with local people and observing their customs. So, to get you started, here's a few quick tips for negotiating the minefield of British etiquette. 1. Complaining. Brits love to complain. They will happily moan to one another about bad weather and overpriced food. They're not, however, as accomplished at complaining when they have an actual problem with a product or receive poor service. When they do it in an apologetic way. You'll find Brits are polite even when they're actually complaining. I think that's true.
Yeah, I've actually got, because I used to, when I was much younger, I sort of worked.
Well, got in the arms trade.
Supermarket and stuff like that, yeah. That was you know, you'd be surprised how few leaps there are from one to the other. But no, I would say actually British people are very good at moaning. They're very bad at complaining. Yeah. So, because you get this and someone would be like, oh, such and such happened, and it's really, you know, it's not on and blah, blah, blah. And you'd be like, okay, well, to rectify this, so I'll sort it out for you, but to make sure it doesn't, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, what if it happens again? Well, what we'll do is you just need to get you to fill out something.
Yeah, raise a complaint.
Oh, I can't bother with all that, so I'll literally write it for you, just put your name at the bottom. Nah. Oh, no, I'm not going to all of that. Yeah. In other words, they want to piss in my ear about it. Yeah. They've got plenty of time to moan to somebody who they can look down their nose at just because they've got, you know, a worse job than them. So
is that the case in the supermarket you worked in? The people coming...
Well, no, because there's a power dynamic, isn't it? Where basically, if somebody... It doesn't matter what...
You can't say anything back, so therefore...
If they complain about you, then you're basically 3 times and you're fired, more or less. So there's... You really can't say anything back, and it's.
But that's all jobs where you're dealing with the public.
Oh no, absolutely. I think anyone has to deal with public stuff. Who deal with the Great British Public. They've got my sympathy. The vast majority of people, to be honest with you, I found were fine, but it's just you get a few obnoxious people.
That's why I've
used it as an excuse to get stuff off.
Cleverly manoeuvred myself career-wise to a position where I never have to deal with the public.
Oh no, absolutely.
I have to deal with internal customers.
But you know what, the funniest one, I think it was the one time I actually did speak back because it was just so ridiculous. And there was some chap it was a particular brand of butter that they wanted. And they just literally started having a tantrum like a toddler. It was like, I hate, and he started screaming like, I hate you. Oh, I just wanted to get rid of that.
I hate you.
So, yeah, no, just like,
so it wasn't really about the butter. There was something else going on.
No, exactly. I just sort of said, sorry, can I just stop you there? Can I just remind you you're talking to another human being? Yeah. And then I just walked off. And they were like silenced, so I just like get the fuck out of it before they realised, and start making a complaint about that guy. He's really rude to me. But I just thought, I'm not taking this. I'd rather get sacked, frankly. Yeah. It was really ridiculous. I mean, as you say, they seemed calm on the face of it, but then when I couldn't identify their particular brand of butter, it just suddenly and as you say, probably just having a
But I don't take that out on other people, but then I'm
no, of course not.
Almost psychopathically controlled with my emotions outwardly, so it's just a bubbling cauldron underneath. That's not true.
I think the one thing is working in one of those kind of environments, because I've done sort of call centre work as well, and I think it just teaches you a bit more respect for the people who have to deal with that stuff.
Well, I didn't really need to be taught that, thankfully, but a lot of people...
No, but what I mean there, Chris, is that kind of like, for example, if I'm making a complaint, and I will, because you need to... I'll say, I just want to make it clear I don't have an issue with...
No, it's not anything you've done.
I have an issue with the product, so, I'm not... I'll always sort of say that just because, it's stressful dealing with complaints and stuff.
Yeah, and you say, thank you, you've made this process very easy, that kind of thing. I'll tell you what was weird this morning, sort of going slightly left field, I've just remembered it. In my cat's milk, I found quite a large dead spider that had drowned in the milk. So I don't know. What do you think was going on there? Do you think it was a spider that was trying to maintain its youth and an ancient,
like a Cleopatra-style spider?
Yeah, like a Greek fable, like an Icarus sort of thing.
I'm just a really depressed spider. I just couldn't be bothered anymore. Just like jump in some milk.
Yeah, jump in milk. Unless like one of the cats killed it and then dropped it in the milk.
Making a web anymore.
Yeah, I'm just.
It's not coming out. Can't even do that anymore.
Can't even get it up to shoot any web anymore. What's the point? Right, so...
One of those two, I would imagine.
That smoothly leads on to queuing. Brits across the UK will often be seen forming neat and tidy queues, which, to be fair, queuing is something which has come up. So it's not... I mean, it is very British thing, but it's been... Yeah. But like it is mentioned in pretty much all of the etiquettes that we've done from around the world. But normally, I think to warm Westerners, they don't queue. Whether at a supermarket, train station, or a concert, they will await their turn to the front. The worst mistake one could commit is queue jumping, pushing ahead of the line. This will always be met by disapproval for those who've been waiting patiently. Fair enough. Being polite, saying please and thank you are two important things to always remember in British etiquette. It doesn't matter who you're speaking to, politeness, good manners are always welcome. Seems fine to me.
I mean, that is fine, but I think as well, again, there's a passive-aggressive thing with a lot of British people where they'll say please and thank you almost obsessively.
Yeah, thank you.
No, exactly. But I personally worked with my mum, and she had a really good one. It's just like, the British attitude is fuck you, please.
I don't like it when people say thanking you. Thanking you. So, what are you narrating this conversation?
Yeah, are you commenting on your life as it's going along?
Walking away now.
It's a bit of an affectation, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate it. Tipping. Neil, how much do you tip? I'm a 15% guy. Unless it's a delivery, then I'll give them a couple of quids.
Yeah, it's a ton of 10-15%. It depends on. Also, quite often, I mean, to be honest with you,
they just add it now anyway.
Well, they just add it on the service charge. I think it's normally 12.5%. If it's been really good service, I might throw a couple of quid on top as well. But because the thing is, you're normally in a group with other people, and other people aren't like. So, I used to tip on top of the service charge, and I think people don't really do that anymore. But as I say, the service charge is
now it's more of an opt-out thing, like organ donation.
I mean, I never opted out of service charges. It's ridiculous. You're paying for service.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm always slightly concerned with stuff like that the restaurant's just keeping the money and giving them a bit extra or something, rather than the person who's actually provided the service getting the tip.
Well, it's different because, I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, there's still minimum wage, and I don't believe they're allowed to pay them less than minimum wage.
No.
I think the tips go
No, in America they do. It's weird. It's like tipping's part of your wage, but it's
part of your wage is the tips that you do earn. So you have,
which is such a scam. Such a scam.
Well, I mean, I suppose what people would argue is it makes the food cheaper, but then you end up paying through as a tip anyway. It's just a cultural more, isn't it? But
but I would argue that just pay people a living wage.
You should pay people a minimum wage, frankly.
But anyway. Here we go. Let's see if we agree with this. Sometimes even Brits find it difficult to know how much to tip a server in cafes and restaurants. Well, I think we've disproved that. Or if they should tip anything at all. Always check your bill after the meal. If it reads disabled service not included, then that means you can leave a tip for the person that served you, and the amount is at your discretion. Between 10 and 15%, I would say. I've added that myself. If the service was good, it's customary to add an extra 10% on top of the bill total. I think that's cheap. Many Brits tip taxi drivers and hairdressers too, but exact amount is customers' presence. Yeah, I just say round it up or whatever. If it's like a taxi, it's like £8, just go, yeah, tenner, don't worry about it.
I don't take taxis that often. They're quite expensive anyway.
Me neither.
They're sort of earning good money, frankly. So, but no, I'll top up. It'll normally be at least £1. If the top up is like 5p or something, then I'll just throw another £1 on top. But yeah, I would normally just round up to the nearest quid. It'll normally be about £1.50 or something like that. Seems fair enough.
And leave them, and obviously enough money for the cleaning.
Oh yeah, the copious amounts of vomit and urine and diarrhea that I've left behind me. That's about £1.50. Clear that up, I would assume.
That's fine. There you go. I might say, go and get yourself some antibacterial spray from Aldi. That's only 99p. You've got 50p for your time as well. Beautiful. Ta-ta.
Everyone's a winner.
Using mobile phones in public. Mobile phones may be part of daily life, but it's still important to observe some unwritten etiquette about these handheld devices. Using a mobile phone at a dinner table is considered impolite, as is speaking loudly when making a call, especially on public transport. But people do, but I would agree with all of that. So, 7, good sportsmanship.
Mm.
Nobody, the adage goes, likes a bad loser. Sulking or arguing or complaining if you've lost at any form of competition is considered poor manners. Whether you've been outdone on the sports pitch or exceeded in the classroom, congratulate your opponent with good grace no matter how upset you feel underneath. Right, and I agree with that, but what I would say is things do really trickle down, because the last time I played a season for an 11-a-side team on Saturdays, which was, 8 years ago or something. I found, and I hadn't played 11-a-side for about 10 years before that, and I found it fascinating because it used to be quite blood and thunder, and but what it's turned into is people just like claiming for everything, like they do in the Premier League. And it's so fucking irritating. You just want to punch them all out, because it's not like they're just going, and just like claiming for everything all the time and arguing with the ref and going, like even when it's really obviously you're throwing, or like just really pointless stuff. They're going, no, it's like, fucking hell, who are these people? How do you look at your children in the eyes? Drunkenness. Speaking of Saturday Sunday League football. Depending on the situation, consuming alcohol is often fraught with do's and don'ts. Moderation is always advisable. Something I've learned the hard way. And if you have consumed one drink too many, try to avoid aggression over emotion or impoliteness. Yes, this means no crying. So, Neil, you need to take heed on that.
A bit less weeping, yeah.
Yeah,
fair enough.
When you're on your mother's ruin.
Yeah,
on your gins.
Oh, they slip back so easy.
And they're exotic, aren't they?
Well, exactly. Yeah, Geneva.
They're from Geneva. That's where gin's from. Swiss, isn't it? Swiss drink. Chivalry and traditional etiquette guides still stand. For instance, holding a door open for a lady and standing up when one enters the room for the first time are all considered good manners for the men of Britain. Holding the door open, yes. I don't stand when anyone enters the room.
So you got to stand
when someone enters the room. No, it's not doing that. Wouldn't even do it if a judge walked in the room. I'd rather be a contempt of court. Apologising, this is the last one. No guide to etiquette would be complete without mentioning the Brits' love of apologising. Although one would expect to say sorry for stepping on a shopper's toe or bumping into a passers-by, many will be surprised to find that when two Brits engage in a standoff, both will offer their apologies for being in the other's way. They don't care who's at fault. Apologising is a default reaction to many of life's little incidents. This is the quirk that Brits are famed for. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do tend to just apologise for random things.
Yeah. So there you go. That is our last ever etiquette, and we've gone all round the world and landed back upon this sceptred isle to learn stuff that we already knew. Fantastic. So how have you found our etiquette journey, Neil?
Reasonably common sense in most places. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like anything, isn't it? As you read up a little bit in terms of when you're going to go to a new country or something like that, just to make sure you don't make some faux pas. But
what I'm hearing is, Yes, I found it really useful, and I'm sure the listeners have. Well, thanks, Chris. That's what I heard.
Well, if that's how you want to interpret that, then by all means.
So, Neil, we are doing quite a big urban legend today, one which most people would have heard of, I think. But then again, I was thinking this earlier, I don't know how global it is. So,
well, it's out at Cyprus, so it's it's truly fairly global.
I'm the captain. Yes, what are we doing today?
I don't know how well known it is. It's certainly something that, again, my benchmark tends to be if I've heard of them. I think it's been around for quite a long time. It's an enduring story. I think it's fairly well known, but we shall see. But this is about the Mary Celest, or the Mary Celest, depending on where you picked it up from. And we used to, when I was a kid, we used to have these books of kind of like mysteries and legends and all of this sort of thing. And I remember that being one of the ones in there that was kind of like a bit more of an interesting one, because it was a bit more true to life. So all of these unexplained.
So what I know about the Mary Celeste, which I'll put this out, and then you can let me know. We'll go through and see how wrong I am. So what I know, it's a ship which was found adrift. For some reason, I had a false memory that it was off the south coast of England, but I don't think that's right. It was so it's in the Atlantic, I guess. And it's still, all the crew had gone, but it was all kind of still laid out like they'd just disappeared suddenly. So like they still had like the dinner plates and, hot cup of coffee, where you go, he was recently here. Like there was still a cigarette burning in the ashtray. a guillon, and it was like a cargo ship, and I think all the cargo was there. So they were like, well, it wouldn't have been pirates because they would have had the cargo. And that's about it. Apart from people think that it's probably aliens or the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, aliens, Bermuda Triangle. Some people do say pirates, but as you say, they would
have taken some.
Yeah, I mean that's not far off the truth, to be honest with you. It's not. I mean, or it's. So there is a compelling mystery here. So it's kind of part urban legend, part mystery. This one,
urban myth.
And I don't think, part urban myth, part sort of mystery. Because
we are stretching the boundaries of our remit, calling it an urban legend, and in fact, it's a nautical myth.
Well, it's not a myth. I mean, it absolutely happened. But there's a lot of stuff that's kind of been laid over the top. So
someone's phone was still charging there, like all sorts.
Yeah, the phone was still charging.
Someone had left. There was a soda stream half used
because
the TV was still on.
TV was still on, but it was giving weird bursts of static. There was a blender making margaritas that was still churning.
Someone had paused a match of FIFA. I imagine 2016, like paused it halfway through the second half as if they were just going to the toilet. So
just as they come across to say, what could have possibly been? So in actual fact, this was in 1873, give or take, I think. I'll come up with the date.
150 years ago, Neil.
Yeah, more or less. Coming up to that.
Right.
I wonder if they'll do something. I've been too literal there. I'm wondering if they'll do something to mark the.
We should.
The 50th anniversary.
We should. Isn't that when we're doing our first urban legend cruises? Which is going to be like whatever his name was, McCaffrey, who the guy who went mad.
The antiviral, McAfee.
He disappeared off on a boat for a bit, didn't he? Just doing loads of bath salts with machine guns.
I'm not sure he
did. He's killed himself now.
Shall we say he was displaying a lot of erratic behaviour? Yeah, he's passed now, hasn't he? I believe, but it's a strange story.
Or maybe like the Sea Org. We could do it. We do our tour.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very, very much like that sort of a.
Yeah,
if you have your own private navy is always a good thing, I think. So, I mean, so I think that's probably
a couple of rubber dinghies taped together.
I don't think we're going to have quite the same financial backing as everyone had.
Too soon to say.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, it's one of these ones where I say it's kind of like halfway between urban myth and kind of like sort of a true mystery, because there is, there is a true ship, but it was, or there is a true story here. But a lot of the stuff has been embellished. So to sort of take up some of the points, I think the jumping off point is probably just to sort of like introduce some of those elements you've just mentioned and where some of them might have come from, and then sort of go back a little bit over the true story of the ship. So the Mary Celest, for example, it's the Mary Celest. So the Mary Celest is something that come from a story by Arthur Conan Doyle. He was a 25-year-old ship surgeon at the time, and he wrote about 10 years later, he wrote a short story for a magazine, and it kind of feels like a lot of the stuff had come from that. The whole idea that I think this has now become a cliche, and I suspect that this is again the kind of ground zero for this kind of story. A bit like we were talking the other week around the Amityville house. Introducing some things like the haunted burial ground and all of that sort of thing. It's become a bit of a cliche, but yeah, that whole sort of trope that you've got now of everyone's mysteriously vanished, or mysterious vanishing of all of these people, and that the coffee's still warm and all that sort of jazz. So that's not really quite true.
So how did he differentiate between the name Mary and Mary? Was it with two R's?
It just instead of Mary, he did Marie.
Oh, okay.
So Mary rather than Mary. So he was basically trying to sort of like distance. He was wanting to build on a true story, but actually, make it clear it was fiction. So, but actually, I mean, I used to think it was called the Mary Celeste as well, because it's become intertwined. Yeah. But actually, even before he wrote his short story, so this is a quote from the Los Angeles Times that retold the story in 1883. Every sail was set, the tiller was lashed fast, not a rope was out of place, the fire was burning in the galley, the dinner was standing untasted and scarcely cold, the log written up to the hour of her discovery. Now that's all basically untrue.
Right. Well, you can't.
So the log hadn't been updated for about 9 days, and there wasn't a load of like meals sitting there ready to be
from then till up to the present day. You cannot trust the LA Times.
Yeah. The Express had some sort of slightly dodgy take on it as well.
Was it Princess Diana found on?
Yeah, it was basically Princess Diana. They were even back before she existed. They were banging on about Princess Diana and looking forward to getting into her. So let's talk a little bit then about what actually did happen. And there's a lot of interesting theories about what might have happened. And I don't think there's really a definitive one. Every so often, this is one of those ones where somebody claims to have solved it.
Right.
But I don't really think there's a couple of theories that we'll come into. But so we'll go through the theories and then we'll have a think about whether they're outlandish or whether they're sort of a bit more believable. So firstly, from the start, in some quarters, you could say that the Mary Celeste could it have been a cursed ship? So it was launched in May '61 under a British registry. So it was built in Canada, in Nova Scotia. And on its initial voyage to carry lumber to England, the captain became ill. The ship turned around, and he died shortly afterwards.
And death at sea was very rare, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, no, exactly. And it's one of those ones where for some people it's like, was it an omen of things to come? But actually, it's.
Well, Nova Scotia's quite spooky, isn't it? New Scotland, that's quite a spooky area.
Yeah, I mean, if you take the
Viking stuff there, there's I think the Skull Island from the History 2 documentary series. I think that's from, and I think they have an idea that the Templar Knights might have gone there. I think that's in Nova Scotia. Really?
I was thinking of that weird episode of Dark Place where he's clearly got something against Scottish people.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, and I should just point out here, actually, I'm reading out some of the, it's quite a good summary from a chap called Mike Sirotta. So I just give him a shout out to mikesirotta.com.
Mikey!
If you want to check out other bits and pieces. We're jumping around from various different sources between this. But just to shout out for
jumping around like a Chinese vampire, Neil.
Indeed, yeah, they love to hop. It's part of their fun. So they had it was called the Amazon at this point when it had originally been built, and it had a load of other problems. The number of collisions, including one on the English Channel, resulted in the sinking of a brig, and then a storm drove it ashore on Cape Breton Island off of Nova Scotia, and they abandoned it as a wreck, and then eventually got sold and rebuilt in America. And this is when it actually became the Mary Celest. They appointed a new captain, Benjamin Briggs, who was one of the investors, and they were going to take a load of denatured alcohol across from New York. And it's not telling me where they were sending it to. Anyway, they were basically going to take a load of denatured alcohol.
What's denatured alcohol?
Meths, basically.
Meths.
So where you've added something so that it's not drinkable.
Oh, okay.
Presumably, so you don't have to pay the taxes on it. Because normally alcohol is quite heavily taxed in most places. If it's for consumption, but if it's not for consumption.
So it's like for medical stuff then, maybe?
No, I guess it would be for use for sort of like industrial solvents and things like that.
Ooh.
So, I don't know, cleaning stuff like that.
Push that high down the road.
But yeah, so that they're, as I say, like meth that you used to clean.
Methylated spirits,
Yeah, that kind of thing. So not sure what they're going to be using it for, but so it was the captain, the family, and 7 experienced mariners.
So it's quite a small crew.
It's quite a small crew, yeah. It's quite interesting, and it's not a huge ship, but there's not a load of them on there.
Oh, I thought it was like a galley.
Yeah, well, this is one of the other things, because you tend to think of it as having had when you think of a ship, you're thinking of maybe hundreds of people knocking about and they've all disappeared, but actually it's much smaller crew. It actually makes it a lot more meaningful as well. So that was the last anyone had heard of them, basically, because they came out of port on November the 7th, and it was found on December the 5th. It was sailing between the Azores and the Portuguese coast. I think it was about 1,000 miles off the Portuguese coast.
Yeah, miles away, the Azores and Portuguese coast.
So it was spotted by, I think it was a British ship, and
blew it up.
He sent out, no, I don't think there was those problems at that time. So he sent his first and second mate to check it out. They searched all of the ship and reported back to the captain. There wasn't a trace of the captain of the Mary Celeste, his wife or his daughter, all the 7 crewmen. It was a ghost ship. What they did find, the lifeboat was gone, and some sails and rigging were damaged or missing. The main hatch was closed, but 2 others were open. They couldn't find the navigational instruments.
So, I mean, it sounds like they fucked off in the boat.
Yeah, well, exactly. So,
there's that thing as well, isn't it, where which I learned from the TV show Black Sails, that you can get a bit where there's just no wind at all if you're in a sailing ship, and you can just sit there for weeks
in the calms. Yeah.
And that's pretty much one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a ship.
I mean, that would be on a much longer voyage, I guess. But no,
it's in the middle of the Atlantic.
Well, that's fair enough, I suppose. But yeah,
I mean, how long do you want? Boat to Pluto.
Fair enough. They call it the doldrums as well.
Yeah, the doldrums.
That word. Yeah, but that if you run out of water, that can be extremely extremely dangerous. But I think they did have plenty of provisions on the ship at the time, so there's no evidence that they were sort of running out of water or something like that. So something made them abandon ship by the looks of it. So what there isn't. So you'll read some of the theories, and there's kind of like, everyone just suddenly vanished, like it's aliens just snatched them up or something like that. Actually, it looks like it was abandoned, but actually it would have been quite rare to abandon a ship, because even if you're in the doldrums, normally you might take a lifeboat, but then try and row the ship away a little bit or something like that.
Well, I guess the thing is as well, there was plenty of provisions there. These were presumably quite busy shipping lanes, so the likelihood is someone would turn up at some point. So you'd probably wait until the very last minute before abandoning ship. And also the captain was one of the investors, so it's not like, fuck it, like someone else can deal with it. Like, unless he was doing an insurance job or something.
Well, also, you're much safer on a ship that's like provisioned and everything than you are on a lifeboat. Because, you can row under your own steam and go a bit faster. there's no evidence that they were in doldrums or anything. But even if you were under that condition, you'd probably be better off waiting for somebody to find.
Yeah, because you've got shade, you've got provisions, and you're in the shipping lanes, and you're more likely to be spotted a bigger ship, even though it was smaller than I thought, than in a rowing boat.
Yeah, and so it looks like they jumped ship at some point, but actually, there's no real sort of notion to why. Because the fact that, this is where everyone sort of talks about it having, the food still being warm and all of that sort of stuff. Well, no, clearly they'd taken some navigational equipment, so they had to abandon ship somehow for some reason. But that's where it becomes a bit more of a mystery. So anyway, they've taken it in to sailed it to Gibraltar and put in a salvage claim. And
I'm having that.
The judge, Well, no, I think that's the law of the sea, isn't it? If you find it's to encourage people to bring these things back because there's a certain amount of danger bringing back another ship, you will get some money back for them. I can't remember how the split works, but I think you can.
Well, then I guess the question turns up is: did the people from this ship just kill all the people on that ship and then take it for salvage?
The judge was very much of the opinion that that something funny must have happened.
Yeah.
So a lot of people believe that a crime must have been committed.
I think I've heard
10 people disappearing, but they couldn't actually prove anything because it had been abandoned and left in a life. So there was, I think,
the sea keeps itself to itself. Knows how to
keeps it secret.
Knows how to keep its mouth shut.
Yeah. So I think when they actually did the initial evidence, so there was a suspicion of foul play, and there was I can't remember the judge, some chap called Flood, which is a good name to have if you're in nautical stuff. But so there were a couple of things where they thought that there might have been an attack. There was some blood on the sword of the captain, and there was some.
It was from shaving.
There'd been some or what looked like might have been blood, and then there'd been some like marks on the side. Of the ship.
You're really phoning it in as a murderer if you sail for weeks and weeks and go into court and hand in your sword without wiping the blood off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's not exactly.
I knew there was something I forgot.
But for years it did dog them. So in 1931 there was an article in a magazine called the Courtly Review that suggested that Morehouse could have lain in wait for them. Lord Briggs and his crew aboard the Del Gracia and killed them there. It's slightly... there's no real evidence for that though, and they were in a slower ship, so they couldn't have sort of caught up for them. And, it doesn't seem massively likely that it'd be. Another thing is some people have thought that they might have been partners, like the captain of the Mary Celeste and the captain of the other ship might have been partners in the conspiracy to share salvage.
Well, and maybe get insurance as well, because he was one of the business partners. I mean, how much?
Well, it was involved in an insurance scam afterwards, actually.
Yeah, how much money are you making shipping white spirit around the globe? Not much, I don't think. I mean, you can get it. You can get it in B&Q for £1 for a litre now. So it's not high end stuff.
No, but then again, the salvage, you're just going to get the cost of the ship and the cargo anyway. So
yeah, but that's. But if the captain was one of a consortium of people who had invested to buy this ship, right? And it's a ship with a checkered past, like, or is it a cursed ship and all that? Then he buys like 1/5 of the ship, say, and they insure it. And then he meets with his mate. They go and salvage a ship for the cost of the ship and the cost of the contents plus the insurance money. He squids in.
Well, they didn't claim on insurance because he wasn't around to claim insurance.
What about the other investors?
Don't know about that, but then that would have been their own scam, wouldn't it? It wouldn't have benefited the captain. So
yeah, that's true. But still, half a ship. If you invested in 1/5 of a ship or 1/10 of a ship, and you get half a ship worth of money back, that's. I would have thought that's the kind of thing that you would be doing in your nefarious activities.
It's just so there's easier ways to do it. But no, as other people commented, if they'd been planning that sort of a scam, they wouldn't have devised such an attention-drawing mystery. And, Also, there's the fact that nobody ever heard from Briggs, this captain.
Neil, there's no bad ideas. Look, I'm just throwing around a few ideas.
You're just throwing things around, right, but just explaining why some of them may be less likely. And there's also been a suggestion that they could have been attacked by pirates. But as people have observed, the personal possessions of the captain and crew were left undisturbed. So there was also a theory by a historian.
They wouldn't take their personal possessions if it might. I mean, depending what they were. I mean, if it's your personal jukebox, fair enough, leave it. But if it's like a pocket watch and a brooch, then you would think you'd probably take it.
They probably took the immediate stuff that they could, but you're not going to overload a lifeboat with stuff that you're only going to take what you can absolutely afford to take. Because you'll probably, I would imagine, if you're bailing ship at that point, you're more interested in bringing water and provisions along than anything else. That's going to be more, because you aren't necessarily going to survive. But I thought they weren't too far away from land. So you're not going to be bringing anything particularly heavy. But there was still stuff knocking around on the ship that basically could have been robbed. So it doesn't feel like pirates is a particularly obviously is, and then a historian saying 1925 just seems to have made this up completely out of his arse. But he suggested that the captain slaughtered everyone on board and then killed himself in a fit of religious mania. But after speaking to his family, he apologised and withdrew the theory in later edition.
Well, also none of the bodies were found, so.
Good research there. Well, no, exactly. Yeah, and when they actually sort of did some looking later on, there was no real signs of blood.
That's just. Do you know what that is? That's temperance movement talk. That's what that is. So pirates seem unlikely then. Neil, did you ever think about becoming a pirate or fantasise about that when you were a kid, or in fact a member of the temperance movement?
No, not a member of the temperance unit.
Temperance unit. That's a militant arm.
Temperance. Yeah.
They clash with the Countryside Alliance.
I can imagine that'd be havoc. Yeah, I don't know. There's kind of like read some of the stories about pirates when you're a kid. It seemed like quite an enticing life. The problem is, it's modern piracy. It's just not as exciting as it's not like that sort of Jack Sparrow stuff, is it? Or Bluebeard or any of that.
What I like about pirates is they were very egalitarian and they weren't racist. And the people had people, no matter who they were, had a vote. It was a very sturdy and early version of like a proper modern democracy. What pirates did. They were pretty woke for the 18th century. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's good.
Yeah, no,
that's nice. I mean, obviously, going around murdering people for stuff isn't great.
Great, no, absolutely. But one of those things.
There's always something romantic about little guys sticking it to the man, or as it was at the time, the imperial powers, I guess.
Yeah, and if you're sort of raiding stuff I think that was why they did on those Pirates of the Caribbean movies, had the sort of East India Company, because it's quite easy to cast them as bad guys. So actually, you can sort of you can. I mean, I think probably it was probably short-lived life, but yeah, just there's something quite romantic about.
What always shocks me is how small the ships actually were. Because you think of galleons and stuff, and you think of them as massive, don't you? Like buildings on water, but they're actually tiny. Really, people are really crammed into those spaces. You might have a crew of 75 people, but I mean, they're living cheek to jowl. It's not like a big ship. They're pretty small, and the pirates would have smaller ships even than merchant ships, because obviously manoeuvrability and speed was more important than firepower, really.
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, basically, if you were coming across an official ship, you probably wanted to run off rather than try and get engaged in sort of gunfire, one would imagine, or from what I've read of kind of these kind of things. But absolutely. Well, they really only had enough room to sort of sling up a hammock, didn't they? Because it was very, very crowded. But if he was the master and commander,
I haven't. But my uncle Rob, who I've mentioned in this before, was in it.
Yes, he was. He was the
one of the captains.
I forget the chap's name now, but yeah, it's. I think he was the master of sailors.
Maybe I've not seen it, even though he's in it.
As you're saying, the court. There was always this unproven thing that there might have been some funny business. So the court did actually award salvage claim to Morehouse. The captain had found the ship, but it was barely 1/5 the estimated value, because they were still a bit sort of suspicious that something might have happened, even though they couldn't prove anything.
Are they allowed to do that? I suppose so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a judgment, isn't it? So it's by the,
Yeah, but I mean, can you make a judgment based on? And obviously, I'm a bit sensitive about this topic, based on your feelings rather than evidence.
Apparently so. I mean, presumably they could have. What do we call it? They could have. Fight against it or whatever. I'm not sure what.
Well, I would almost say that
legal avenues would have been. But
if they could have and they didn't, then that, to me, puts more suspicion on them.
Yeah, but then again, I think it's probably, when you're looking back on those kind of days, is that, the old boy network and all the rest of it, they probably would have just backed each other up. So I doubt you'd be on a hiding to very much. It's
especially
not like
Gibraltar.
Yeah. So I'm not sure you would have got much.
The Knights of Gibraltar, that secret order.
Exactly. So basically what we've got is that, a ship that has been abandoned. I mean, that's indisputable. They've never seen, they never found the people who'd gone missing ever since. So that sort of then leaves us to kind of think about what the different, theories might be. So as I say, there's been various theories about there might have been some foul play. So I mean, one of the thoughts was that because they were carrying alcohol, that they might have, the crew might have been drinking that and then decided to attack the captain or something like that. But
drinking methylated spirits.
Well, exactly, and it's like, it doesn't take into account the fact that they would have just been drinking meth. So it doesn't. There's absolutely no real evidence for a piracy attack or anything else. So we can sort of look at some of the more weird sort of theories. So one of the there are some sort of thoughts that there might have been some kind of natural phenomenon. I mean, you talked about the alien abductions and other things. So that's one thing that's been posited, I think. But it's not.
Why would they take the boat, the lifeboat? What would aliens have taken that?
Exactly. It doesn't. They clearly sort of like did actually abandon the ship. So
of course, what I would say is, if I were the people who had come along and killed them all up, I would have got rid of the nautical equipment and the lifeboat and said, "Oh, well, it looks like they just abandoned it and went off somewhere."
Oh, there you go.
Wouldn't you?
You would, and that's the thing is, you can never truly know, can you, with some of these things. Another theory that's been put across has been that they may have been attacked by a giant squid.
The Kraken!
Yeah. Archtoothus rex or whatever it's called. It's not rex, it's ducks perhaps. So you can get they can grow up to sort of like about 20 foot in length, I think.
Oh, bigger. And like the proper deep sea ones, massive.
Oh, but the ones that come up to the surface, I don't know why.
Well, they come up sometimes to die or like under really weird circumstances because they like to stay right at the bottom of the sea, don't they?
Yeah, no, the really big ones. But I think there are ones that can actually, they've been known to not necessarily attack ships, but sort of interact with ships or sort of, well, I mean, call it attack if you like. So that has happened before, and I think there have been cases where like a person has been sort of like knocked off a ship by one of these creatures, but not like the whole crew necessarily. So and again, there's no real evidence for
the giants, for that. Just giant squids,
giant sea monsters attacking.
Yeah, well, you get them around. You do get them around the Azores. So, what are you going to do? But yeah, they don't normally attack humans, do they?
No, you wouldn't have thought that they get. I mean, I think from things I've read before, if they were if they thought it was something that they might mistake the ship for another squid or something like that.
Or like a whale, because they attack whales.
Yeah, or a whale. Oh, yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, because they go after...
In October 2019, a 9-metre, 30-foot giant squid washed ashore in Galicia, Spain. It had previously been photographed alive shortly before its death by a tourist named Javier Onidicol. It indicated that the squid was attacked and mortally wounded by another giant squid. Squid rage.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Yeah, the giant squid can reach 50 foot in length and have been known to attack ships. So could conceivably have picked up a crew member, but hardly have taken the the lifeboat and all of the captain's navigational instruments.
No, but I mean, it could have attacked what? So they're saying that it attacked
the lifeboat.
Yeah, it could have attacked the lifeboat, thinking it was.
Well, they're saying it could have attacked. Whale. It could have attacked the ship, but it might have. Yeah, I mean, that's potential as well as they could have. But then, why did they? That still doesn't explain why they got on the lifeboat in the first instance.
Fancied a little row about
with all of the navigational instruments.
Yeah, so you get back to the ship. Well, no, that's just being safe, isn't it? In case something happens. The problem is that because of technology, captains in those days were no longer able to navigate by the stars. So, too reliant on technology.
Yeah. It's like all their smartphones these days, isn't it?
Exactly. No one can get anywhere. What if Google Maps goes down? You're dead, aren't you? You just die in the street. You don't know where to get food.
I'm going to help you then.
Whereas as you know, I always carry a pocket sundial with me.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just want to know what time it is.
You and Ray Mears.
Yeah, me and Ray Mears, yeah. I might go to a few of his bushcraft retreats every now and then, eat some squirrel. But,
nice.
At the end of the day, should England be thrown back into the Stone Age, everyone's going to be knocking on my door. So
I think it's not if, but when, to be honest with you.
When we get, as soon as you run out of fossil fuels.
I mean, already we're getting petrol shortages, so we're going to become feral within about 12 months, I would say.
Oh, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
I mean, we'll go through the Mad Max period first, I suspect.
Again, that would be good.
A slightly more polite version.
Is that why you got yourself so in with Uri Geller's motorcycle gang for the Mad Max?
Exactly.
Oh, you're always thinking ahead.
Collecting all of the, all the special outfits. What I want the future to look as much like
with a giant squid on the back.
BDSM club as possible. Post-apocalypse. And the British Journal of Astrology has described the Mary Celest story as a mystical experience, connecting it with the Great Pyramid of Giza, the lost continent of Atlantis, and the British Israel movement.
Oh,
I'm not quite sure where they're going there.
Is it that Britain is the new Israel, and that's why Jesus did walk upon this sceptred land, or whatever? That Jerusalem song.
Apparently, no. The British Israelism is a belief that the people of the British Isles are genetically, racially, and linguistically the direct descendants of the 10 lost tribes of ancient Israel.
Which one?
Enough. All 10, I guess.
All 10 of them.
There you go.
British royal family. Well, we knew this anyway because we learned. If anyone's not in England, we learned this in school that the British royal family.
It's not supported by modern research.
Doesn't matter. It's tradition. It's tradition. So we all believe, to a man, even me and Neil, who are skeptics by nature, we all do 100% believe that the British royal family is directly descended from the line of King David, the guy in the Bible.
Absolutely. Right, let's run through some other bits and pieces. So the Bermuda Triangle has been invoked as well, even though that it was like in a completely different part of the Atlantic. But who knows how far the Bermuda Triangle could extend?
As long as it wants.
Suddenly strong wind. And I like this summary from Wiki. It's similar fantasies have considered theories of abduction by aliens in flying saucers. So yeah, as we were saying earlier, there's absolutely no reason to assume that aliens would have been involved. So I think now we can look at some of the couple of theories about what might have happened. Not as interesting, sadly, but hey. One is around the fact that the pump had been sort of pulled apart a little bit. There was a thought that actually what might have happened is that they thought the chronometer was faulty and they might have gone off course. So they were west of where they should have been. And then they might have sort of panicked about not being able to sight land. But that wouldn't make you abandon ship. But what also had happened is that they'd had the pumps refitted recently, and that there was likely some clogging of the pumps, so that they couldn't pump out the ship properly. So with the pumps not working, they might have decided to abandon ship. But although that again seems like a little bit of a drastic one. And then there's a chemist from UCL that did an experiment in 2006, which possibly is a bit more plausible. Where there was a lot of talk about because it was quite volatile, the cargo. So you've got this alcohol on there, and that would have been like leaking through the barrels and things. So you'll get fumes and things like that. but because there was no sign of fire or explosion, it'd always been ruled out as if there'd been any kind of like something, like somebody might have been smoking a pipe, or there might have just been a spark gone off in the hold or something like that could have caused an explosion that caused them to abandon ship. Because there was no sign of fire, that was sort of ruled out.
Yeah.
But they did an experiment for a Channel 5 documentary.
Ooh. There's your sign of quality.
Yeah, absolutely. To be fair, it's a chemist from UCL, so Dr. Andrea Sella. So they built a replica of the hold of the Mary Celest and used butane gas to simulate an explosion. They sort of built all of this out of paper. But they set light to the gas, got a huge blast, which sent a ball of flame upwards. But there was no burning or blackening of the replica hold. So what they said was this was like a pressure wave explosion. So you got a spectacular wave of flame, but it was, it didn't actually heat up that much. So it didn't create any soot or any burning or scorching, but that would have very much, felt like an explosion if you were on the ship. So it could have blown open the hatches and it would have terrified everyone on board. So, and that, as I say, that could have been just somebody being careless, or it could have just been like a spark in the hold or something like that. So, because they'd had 300 gallons of alcohol had leaked, so that could have created quite a terrifying explosion. So, that's...
I mean...
Problem is with a lot of these things, though, you're never going to be able to properly solve it. So, it fits the facts, but who knows?
Well, does it? I mean, the fact that
well, yeah, because if you had an explosion on the ship, you might think you're about to suddenly sort of like go down, and then get everyone on board a lifeboat, and then. But
there was nothing. There was nothing to show there was an explosion, was there?
No, there wasn't. But what they've demonstrated is that there could have been one
without damaging anything.
And have been an explosion similar to the conditions on the ship, it wouldn't have left any traces.
That sounds like a weird explosion. Explosions always leave some traces.
Well, no, this is what they've demonstrated with the chemistry experiment. So they built a model. They used butane to replicate an explosion. Got a big explosion, but because
so an explosion to me is a fast like gas moving really quickly.
Yeah, it's gas expanding very rapidly.
But then surely it would have knocked the tables around and stuff.
I don't know. No, because what you're probably, I imagine what's happening is it would have exploded, would have blown open the hatches on the hold. So it wouldn't necessarily have rocked the entire ship, would it? It's because you think about it, you've got your weak point. It's a bit like if you have, firing a bullet out of a gun, the gas all escapes out of the open entrance, doesn't it? So all of the pressure would have gone onto the holds, which would have broken open, and then all of the air and stuff would have come out through there, I guess, or the gas would have come out through there. Anyway, they simulated it, and they found that there could have been an explosion on ship, and it would have been consistent with with not leaving any sort of real marks, which is because two of the holds, the main hold was actually closed down, but two of the ancillary hold doors were actually open. So there you go. It's a possibility.
It is. I'm sceptical about it, though.
Yeah, then this is the thing. It's it's a mystery. So what seems fairly likely is that they definitely they've abandoned ship probably in fairly good order. But what caused them to abandon ship? That's what sort of like you never know, and that's what makes it a sort of compelling mystery. Because why did they abandon ship? Well, I guess we'll never truly know.
Sorry, I'm just looking at a map, a sort of a flow chart of how all the kings and queens of Europe are related.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Look up
it's
as well.
It's a pretty close club.
Yes, they've really needed to get in some fresh blood for quite a while. That's why it's good getting in the likes of Diana and stuff, but and then obviously Meghan. But they need
Kate.
infusion.
Don't forget Kate, new Queen of Hearts.
Oh, of course, Kate. Oh, the commoner. Yeah.
Ugh, disgusting.
Yeah. The thing is, people seem to like having a monarch in England. I don't know why.
Some do.
Well, the majority.
Oh, yeah, but I think that's the same as...
I'm not a fan, personally. But...
I don't care, to be honest.
No, I'm not bothered.
The thing is, right, there's the whole thing about... because I looked into the financing aspect of it, because people go, do they cost us money or do they not, and blah, blah, blah. The thing is, what they they don't cost anything, actually produce money. And it's not because of tourist money or anything. It's because the money which they get from, well, and to be fair, you know, it's all property theft and stuff, but the money that the Crown Estates earns is paid into the Exchequer, and they get a stipend from that. But the majority of it just goes into the Exchequer to go on taxes and stuff. So, I mean, if you were to strip them of the Crown Estates and stuff, yeah, fair enough. Like then they would cost us money, but they're, you know, under law at the moment, what their holdings are actually is a massive net gain for the Exchequer. So,
in terms of them paying, and that's why it was sensible when they decided to start paying tax. I can't remember if it happened in the 90s or something, but
but it's not just tax. The actual money produced by that all goes into the Exchequer, and they get a percentage of it, which is like 5% or something. So, you know, but again, I mean, I don't care either way. I think
no. I mean, I'm not overly bothered, and I think, you know, the argument would be, you know, if you just sold it all off, it would just end up in someone else's pocket. It would just
Jeff Bezos would just buy it all.
Yeah,
and turn it into one big Amazon warehouse,
Amazon Palace,
which we have to live in.
Yes.
The Amazon ghettos. Just say it, no, just everyone just live in an Amazon warehouse.
Only a matter of time before that happens.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
You know, I'm assuming it'll be claiming eminent domain over all of us fairly soon.
Well, you know, Charlie Brooker, if you
all become Amazon partners.
Charlie Brooker, if you're listening, you know, just credit me with the idea of, in the future, everyone living on site or within an Amazon warehouse, and they you know, have they have their houses within the warehouse, and they have to work delivering stuff to other people to get their stuff delivered to them, etc.
Yeah.
It's not a fully formed idea, mate, but there's a kernel of something there, so crack on.
Sure someone can work that up into a business case.
Take it to the TSB.
That's what you pay them all that money for, surely.
You see, that's the difference between me, a naive person, and you, a geopolitical surfer. I thought of it as a dystopian concept for a Black Mirror episode. You thought of it as a business opportunity.
Well, you know,
always on, aren't you? Always on.
Got to go where the opportunity is. Yeah, so I mean, to be honest with you, that's pretty much it for the Mary Celeste. It's an interesting little mystery. But I think it's one that's just what's quite interesting about it is it's just spawned a lot of kind of like thought about different ways in which the you know, that the ship may have been abandoned, or the state in which it was found. So, you know, there are some official explanations, but, you know, nobody's ever really been able to prove definitively what happened.
Yeah, there's not a satisfactory theory out there, I wouldn't say.
No.
At all.
You know, it's like, you know, like your early seasons of Lost. Sets up a reasonably compelling mystery, and then
fucks it off.
Very little interesting comes out at the end of it.
Yeah. So what do you think happened, Neil? What's your theory? Shall I give mine first?
Yeah, you can do, yeah.
So so my outlandish theory would be collective madness, which can happen, where humans feed off each other and then convince themselves that something's bad's going to happen or is happening, and then they went off on the boat and it didn't work out very well. I think that's my outlandish theory, because there are, you know, there's plenty of examples of collective madness happening. Have you seen that thing where, like, there's a weird thing where, like for a day, people in a town or whatever, like, couldn't stop dancing or something like that, or everyone had hiccups. Like, people pick up on other people and then everyone starts doing it, and it kind of snowballs.
Oh no, I've heard of something that there was some kind of, like, I can't remember how this is a made up story. There was a plague. It was the medieval thing of people. I'm pretty sure there were dancing plagues in
that kind of thing
in the medieval era. But let's say this was a while back, and this is where people were a bit more sort of superstitious, I guess. There was because you see these woodcuts of, like, skeletons dancing, and these people literally were dancing themselves to death. But,
like the dancing priest of Father Ted.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a mania that occurred in Strasbourg, Alsace. 50 and 400 people took to dancing for days. The dancing plague of 1518.
Yeah, so there's that kind of stuff throughout history, that sort of collective madness. So it could be that they all, I don't know. And again, I don't know what effects. I mean, the thing is, if they were getting fumes off white spirit or whatever, is that not like people doing solvents, like solvent abuse, but they didn't know it's happening? And maybe over days that made them go a bit loopy and they decided to get off the ship. They might have started hallucinating, thinking they were seeing stuff on the ship because they were all wound up and had lots of solvents in their blood.
I would imagine unless you were down in the hold or something, you're probably not being that exposed to it. So it would have been built.
Presumably they would sleep in, and they weren't sleeping under the stars. They would have slept. And the thing is, it's a ship, so the fumes.
They would have slept in a galley.
The fumes can come up through the floorboards, like through between the gaps in the planks.
Yeah, I don't know what the arrangement of the ship was. So, but I would have assumed. Yeah, no. I would have assumed that they wouldn't have been storing, because they would have known about volatile spirits coming up and stuff. So I would have assumed that their sleeping quarters would have been on another part of the boat.
But it's a small boat. Small boat, isn't it?
Yeah, don't know.
So that's one. I think probably the more likely explanation from all the stuff I've heard is that something went down with the people who salvaged it, and it didn't work out well for the people of the Mary Celeste, and maybe they put all their bodies and some navigation equipment into the lifeboat and just set it on fire.
It's possible, I guess.
And then you could say, well, the navigation stuff are gone, and that, so they've obviously fucked off somewhere. That they've abandoned the ship. That's probably on, and everything we know, that seems like the most reasonable explanation. Not that you can prove it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by that one. I must be honest, because I think if you're an experienced captain, you wouldn't just be going around murdering people for the first bit of salvage that you could get hold of. Otherwise, you'd just be doing it all the time. I just don't know that I necessarily buy that there'd be. I mean, if it had been filled with rubies or something, then that's a different story, I guess, because it would have been, an act of piracy. But I don't know that they, I don't see a compelling reason for them to sort of like attack a ship and then to murder a load of people. But I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, just based on everything that we know, which is not huge amounts.
I think to be honest with you, it's the simplest explanation is probably the best, which is that they abandoned ship for some reason, and we'll probably never know truly why. It could have been the explosion that they talked about. It could have been, the pump not working and them feeling that it was going to there was some other theories about there might have been some thoughts that the ship was about to flood due to some sort of, factors in the sea or something that people might have got confused. I think whether the captain panicked or whether there was like a genuine reason for alarm or whatever. I think for some reason they decided to abandon ship and then just basically lost their lives, as happened in those days. I mean, I think this is one of the things is because it's it wouldn't have been that uncommon for people to have because it's quite drastic to abandon ships. I think that's the really weird thing is why they would abandon the ship. I don't really lay a lot of credence to the idea that it was foul play involved. Not convinced by that. Again, you're talking about people who've got experience doing these things.
Yeah, but the captain has experience. The captain of the Mary Celeste had experience, so it seems weird that he would abandon ship. But again,
no, exactly, and it's kind of like what might have caused him to do that. But that seems like the most likely explanation to me. But what caused him to do that? Who knows? As I say, could have been some sort of an explosion. It could have been a build-up of the solvents. So something that made them decide that they weren't safe on the ship, and I think they just took the lifeboats out and decided to chance it, and then just never made it to shore.
Well, fair enough. That's two equally compelling ideas of what may or may not have happened. I think it's probably true that this mystery will never be solved. So get over it, move on, think about something else. That's what I'd say to people. So, Neil, let's go through.
What about this Jack the Ripper character I've been hearing about? That sounds like fun. I don't think anyone's looked into that before.
Neil, so we shall go through our matrix. So,
do you have a particular technique that you're using? this week, Chris, to
yes,
objectively
yes. This week I am going to be. I've paid the person in the Baptist church across the road from where I live to randomly, at intervals, ring the bells to different tunes. Do they have Baptist bells? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, for this conceit, they do. And depending on the tune that rings, that will give me the score. I've memorised them all. I just went for the simplest one this week that I could think of. Was
that inspired by the Boloco?
No, maybe subconsciously it was.
Maybe subconsciously.
Yeah, maybe. He's constantly trying to get me into the Baptist church, so maybe that's what it is. Do you think?
He's a hungry little fella, and you look like a reasonable
Baptist minister. I've met him once. He knocked on my door during lockdown. I did invite him in because I thought he might be a vampire, but he went, "Oh,
it's nice of him to show him."
Yeah, it was good. He was going, I'm the minister from across the road, just checking how everyone's doing, if they need anything. And I went, "Oh, that's really nice of you." No, I'm fine, but well done.
That's decent of him.
I'm not coming to your cult. That's how they get you. They say he was being kind, but he was trying to get people when they're at their most vulnerable to come and join his cult, his snake handling cult. I believe he handles snakes. I think it's Southern Baptist.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So, Neil, spookiness, I'll let you go first. Remember to keep it brief, as we're trying to do that from now on.
So it's not massively spooky. I mean, the idea of a ship just suddenly getting abandoned, I think that the myth is more interesting than the reality, so I'm going to go with that. The food was still untouched on the table, coffee was still hot, all of that sort of nonsense. There is something that's quite sort of spooky and intriguing here. Just, how could somebody just suddenly go missing? But it's not. I think it's just really just the weird sense of mystery. But I think there's a bit of spookiness in that idea of just suddenly everyone just suddenly vanishing, it being completely unexplained and never finding out why. Set up the premise for a good film called The Vanishing. So I'm going to I'm going to go half and half on this. Give it a 5.
Okay, 5. So spookiness. There is something inherently spooky about people just disappearing off the face of the earth for no explanation, whether that be on a ship or a ghost town or whatever. Bermuda Triangle. I guess it, if it could happen to them, what's to stop it happening to me, kind of thing. So, and the fact that no one knows what's gone on is quite spooky. But it's a ghost ship, but it's not a ghost ship as in it's a ship that's a ghost, which would probably be more spooky. So yeah, I'm going to go with you, Neil. I'm going to give it a 5. So believability, I'll go first. Yes, it's believable because it happens. So it's going to have high believability because it's well recorded. There is no one theory behind what happened, so there's nothing to particularly hang our hat on there. It's not like, and everyone says it's aliens. Do you believe that? No, I mean everyone has a different story. Even you and I have crossed swords on this podcast about it. Very, very, very violent and kinetically. Visceral.
I guess to abandon ship if this carries on much longer.
Abandon. But, it happened and it is a mystery. There's nothing to hang your hat on. So believability, I mean, it's going to be an 8 for me. But the only reason why it's not a 10 is because there is no one outstanding theory in which to believe.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to summarise quickly. It's fairly similar for me. It's going to be an 8 from me as well because, as you say, most of it is substantiated, but the lower score because the unsubstantiated stuff isn't really believable for me.
Okay, Neil, reach.
So it's an interesting one, this, to think on how far it has reached, because in my head, this one's really sort of well known, so it'll be interesting to see, truly how it's... I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's been nearly 150 years and people are still talking about it. I think part of that is largely based more on the kind of the tall tales that came out afterwards, but actually they're not that far from the truth. And I just think there's something about unexplained mysteries, and this has become kind of like a bit of a poster child for, a ship going missing. I'm sure this did happen, and or to a certain extent, people setting off and abandoning ship had happened elsewhere. It wasn't that uncommon an occurrence, but yeah, it just feels a bit one that will that will carry on resonating as a bit of a mystery. And it has done for the last 150 years. And I think it's reasonably well known around certainly the English-speaking world. I don't know much more than that, so I'm gonna give it an 8 because I just feel like it's quite well known.
Yeah. So again, it's one which I've pretty much always known about. 150 years old. It's been in lots of TV shows, and there's been films, and it's been books. It's all over the internet. I'm sure it's been in computer games and that. So it's used a lot in popular culture in the English-speaking world. I would imagine people in Europe may have heard of it, but it's not as big. And I would imagine people in Rio de Janeiro have never heard of it, or people in Abu Dhabi have probably never heard of it. So I think people in Japan maybe have heard of it or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's got the global reach.
No, I don't know about that. Might do.
Yeah, so it's fairly old. It's fairly well known. I'm going to go a bit lower than you because, it's just the English-speaking world, really, and maybe bits of Europe. So I think a 7. I think 7's fair, reach-wise. So narrative premise. So, the narrative is there. We've got the whole life story of the ship and what happened afterwards and everything, how it was found, court cases. It's a whole story. So that's good. And the premise is good. Like mystery, ship, no one there. The premise obviously embellished. But it's strong. It's really strong, and it's led to lots of offshoots and different things, but it's an original one. So it's going to be high for me, the narrative premise. The fact that there isn't any were otters, stump squatches or bolocos in it does take it down a little bit because, I love those little guys. But
well, you could have got a giant octopus in there somewhere. Or
it has got a giant squid. But I think it's high. I think that's a 9 for narrative premise for me. Neil?
Yeah, reasonably similar for me. I can always do with a man-animal hybrid in there somewhere, but you can't have it every time. So, I think it's something, and it's a possibly frustrating era of modern television, the sort of mystery box thing. It's because it's a compelling mystery, and I think that gives it a really strong narrative hook. And you can see that from the way that so many different people have tried to fashion out different ways. And I didn't also get into, there were a whole bunch of other stories that people have come out, but they've just been so easily debunked, but that have, been published in newspapers just because it just felt like a good story. And people have been like, well, why would you possibly publish this? And it's like, well, just people couldn't resist the tale, basically. So, yeah, I'll go with a 9 as well. Okay, and that gives us an overall. Give me a second. It's a high one, Neil. It was always going to be. I think it's not as spooky as it could have been.
The spookiness let it down, but overall it is a 59 out of 80, which is, let's have a little look through my numbers on this spreadsheet that I've got here. That I can see unscientifically, it's probably our second highest ever. Probably our second highest. So, well deserving of being our end of series big mystery. So, Neil, how do you think the first series of Urbane Legends has gone?
I think we've learned a lot from our time here. I think some improvements can be made.
I think they've gone better as we've moved on. We've become more professional, although maybe slightly more rambly. But that's just what it. That's just because I refuse to edit things down to an appropriate length that people will listen to.
Exactly. Is this truly worth anyone listening to? Probably not. Let's cut that bit out a bit more. It's very much like a tree. Just prune it more than you think you need to. No, I don't know. No, I've enjoyed sort of looking at some of these things. It's I just think it's quite interesting being able to sort of talk about some of the stuff. So I've enjoyed looking back, and also for me, because I hadn't heard of a lot of these things. It's just quite interesting to see the kind of things that capture people's imaginations. I think it's been nice to sort of look at some of them around the world as well. That's been good.
Yeah,
I think
bringing the world closer together, aren't we? In our own,
one would like to
in our own
idiosyncratic.
Yeah, well, I think that if everyone did that, then what a happy place we'd have.
Idiosyncratic low effort fashion.
Yeah, but if everyone in the world tried to bring the world together in their own idiosyncratic low effort way, then the world would be a lot closer together, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Unless their low effort idiosyncratic way was domination or war, bringing people to heel.
That feels like
so it sounds like a lot of effort.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
Marks
enjoyed
out of 80 for the first series.
Yeah. Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I'll give it a 50.
15?
Yeah. 50.
Oh, very good. Lovely. I'm just writing that down. I'll give it a 40. I'll give it a 40. Half marks.
Middle for diddle.
Okay, and that was series 1. We've had some laughs and we've had some fun. We've had some tears and we've seen our fears. Urban Legend will be here for years. There you go. I improv the song there. That was good, wasn't it?
It was something.
As always, please feel.
I thought about jumping in, but frankly, I think I'd leave to it because I don't think I could have done any better, certainly. So that's impressive.
Not bad. So feel free to email us at urb.legends.pod@gmail.com. We will be back with the start of Series 2 on the 9th of December. Just to give us a couple of weeks to discuss, basically to do an after project report and see what we can improve on. And I've also got to do some graphics for Series 2 and that kind of jazz. But, thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed Series 1. You could certainly listen to it all in one go if you want to go mad, and it will take you about a day and a half.
Wouldn't recommend that.
Wouldn't recommend it. Get on the tonics.
If you don't have any suggestions for things that we should look into for Series 2, please do let us know.
Let us know. We're open to suggestions. But just as a little thing to whet your appetite, one thing we're going to be looking at is people going mad because of the song My Way by Frank Sinatra in Indonesia, I think, is it?
Yeah, in the Philippines. Well, actually, it's mostly in the Philippines, but there are some other cases. So, yeah.
There you go. Quality, Ponce quality. So that's it from Series 1 of Urban Legends. Thanks for listening. I have, as always, been Chris Flynn. Don't have nightmares. And with me, my erstwhile colleague.
Thank you for listening, and hopefully see you in Series 2.
Enjoy your 2-week break. Bye-bye.
Bye.